It's April Fools, and normally that would mean that you would tell jokes about things that are impossible and pretend that they're real. But we've moved beyond that because everything is now possible. We live in a world in which if you say that a man is a woman and a woman is a man, you can't say April Fools at the end of that sentence. This is just the going wisdom. Everything that would have been in April's Fool's jokes, all those things, those are now reality. And if you don't accept those realities, it's because you're a bigot, you bigot. For some odd reason, the Democratic Party has decided that its best electoral strategy these days is to say that boys are girls and girls are boys, and that boys who cut off their penises are girls, and girls who have surgeries to put on prosthetic penises, those are boys, and that anybody who has a hormone treatment is also a member of the opposite sex, and anybody who suffers from gender dysphoria is a member of the opposite sex, and that if you, as a parent, say, no, my little boy's a little boy, not a little girl, and if you say public school teachers should not tell my little boy that he's a little girl or might be a little girl, then this means that you're a bad person and a bigot and a terrible human being. In fact, we must mainline this ideology into every aspect of our educational system so as to create a better, more tolerant, utopian world. This is the entire outlook of the mainstream media. This is the entire outlook of the White House now. And it is insane. If Democrats wish to run on the national platform that boys can be girls, girls can be boys, and that teachers should be able to indoctrinate your kids in these perverse ideas that are anti-science and anti-reality, that if you wish to stop them from doing this, that this makes you a bad person. If they wish to run on that platform, by all means, see where it gets you. So yesterday was the Trans Day of Visibility. The Trans Day of Visibility, because as you know, in our society, trans people don't have enough visibility. I mean, they're merely, according to most statistics, people who actually suffer from gender dysphoria. It's a very minute percentage of the population that suffers from gender dysphoria, 0.2% at the very highest. And yet, we spend outsized attention on this minority of the population. Why? Well, because they are making an argument that applies to everyone, which is that boys and girls do not exist. Right? That male and female are completely arbitrary categories, that they are assigned at birth by doctors. Doctors sit there and then they randomly just decide, you know what? This little being with a penis, I'm just going to call it a boy, just randomly. There's no real reason. It might be a female penis. And the left has decided that this is their top issue. And obviously, we need more visibility. Visibility is what is required around LGBTQIA plus minus divided by sign, percentage sign, caret sign, little tilde thing that goes over Spanish letters. We need more visibility on these issues because that's really the thing, isn't it? That we don't have enough visibility and we don't talk about these issues enough, according to the left. I mean, as Matt Walsh points out, we definitely need a trans visibility day celebrated by the White House. You know, because aside from like Pride Month, International Pronouns Day, Lesbian Visibility Day, International Day Against Homophobia, Harvey Milk Day, Pansexual, Panromantic Visibility Day, Bisexuality, Bisexual Awareness Week, National Coming Out Day, National LGBT Center Awareness Day, Spirit Day, Intersex Awareness Day, Asexual Awareness Week, Transgender Day of Remembrance, Pansexual Pride Day, Aromatic Spectrum Awareness Week, Omnisexual Visibility Day, Non-Binary Awareness Week, and Transgender Parent Day. Aside from all of those, we don't have any days in which we celebrate transgender people. We don't. And so it was necessary for the Secretary of Health and Human Services to fly the transgender flag outside of government offices with your taxpayer dollars. Your taxpayer dollars must be used to fly a flag that proclaims the lie that gender is completely arbitrary, not connected to biology, and that there are multiple sexes. You get to sponsor this. Aren't you excited? Aren't you excited? It's really important stuff. They're going to actually take a flag and put it outside a federal building sponsored by your taxpayer dollars to propagate the myth that sex is completely arbitrary and non-binary. Xavier Becerra, the Health and Human Services Secretary, tweeted on this International Trans Day of Visibility. And of course, Twitter adds its own little emoji of a little yellow fist, which seems racist, holding a transgender flag. I say to our transgender communities, we see you, we stand with you, we will be there for you. For the first time in history, the transgender flag is flying in front of a federal agency, HHS Hubert Humphrey building. Well, I mean, slow clap for them. I really hope that we fly that Trans Day of Visibility flag everywhere, like at all of our embassies. You remember that the Obama administration used to fly the gay pride flag during Pride Month outside of our embassies, but only in westernized countries and maybe outside the Vatican just to piss off the Pope. There was none of that in countries that don't really already agree with Barack Obama. And then the White House released a fact sheet, a very important fact sheet in which they declared that trans surgeries for kids are necessary, that chopping the genitals off of minors is actually a wonderful way of affirming their gender, and that hormone treatments are, in fact, completely fine. Hormone treatments have no long-term effects. Now, the science says that we don't know whether hormone treatments have long-term effects. It would seem doubtful to me whether you can use puberty blockers on a child for long periods of time and for this not to have any long-term effects. So the same people who say you have to eat organic at the supermarket because the pesticides on your apple might screw with you, say that you can jack up a kid filled with testosterone. You can take a little girl and fill her with testosterone, and it will have no long-term impact. None. It's amazing. Science! According to the White House sheet, the information sheet that they have now put out, this is Mary Margaret Olohan reporting for the Daily Wire, early transgender surgeries, hormone treatment, and affirmations are crucial for the health of kids and teens who identify as transgender and non-binary, which of course is why your kid at school must be taught that they might be a member of the opposite sex. And if you object, you must never be told about this. Teachers should be able to separate you off from your kid and indoctrinate your kid in stuff that will ruin their life. And you should have nothing to say about it, according to this White House, because it's just so important that if a kid expresses gender confusion at any age, we immediately meet them at the door with some puberty blockers. The White House flagged a resource from the Office of the Assistant Secretary for Health on Transgender Day of Visibility intended to inform parents and guardians, educators, and other persons supporting children and adolescents with information on what is gender-affirming care and why it is important to transgender, non-binary, and other gender-expansive young people's well-being. Now, gender expansive, are these medical terminologies? Gender expansive. Is transgender a medical term? Transgender is not really a medical term. Gender identity disorder is a medical term. Gender dysphoria is a medical term. Transgender encompasses everything from people who actually have a condition known as gender dysphoria in the DSM-5 to people who say on any given day that while they are biologically male, they feel female on the inside without any long-term symptoms of gender dysphoria, without any of the depression associated with gender dysphoria, without any of the other symptoms associated with gender dysphoria. So transgenderism is apparently now a medical term. Gender-affirming care is a phrase used by transgender activists and media to mask the more grisly-sounding transgender top and bottom surgeries, including removing a biological woman's breasts, removing a biological man's genitals, sculpting a fake penis on a biological woman, facial feminization or facial masculinization, and more. Social affirmation, puberty blockers, and hormones also fall under the gender-affirming care umbrella. Remember, gender-affirming care is an Orwellian term because what it means is biology denying care. They're saying that your gender, what you think you are in your head, is more important than what your body actually is. So to chop the penis off of a 15-year-old boy is gender affirming. It is not mutilation. It is not creating a false vagina that is going to require that person to put an object in that area to prevent it from healing up for years. This is literally what happens when you do these surgeries. I know we're supposed to pretend that these surgeries are anodyne and antiseptic. They absolutely are not. They are barbaric in the extreme. Commentators, lawmakers, and people who identify as transgender and people who formerly attempted transitions have expressed grave concerns about encouraging children or young people to explore transitions of any kind, according to Mary Margaret Olohan. Nonetheless, the Office of the Assistant Secretary for Health sheet says, quote, gender-affirming care is a supportive form of health care. It consists of an array of services that may include medical, surgical, mental health, and non-medical services for transgender and non-binary people. Remember, these are not even people who identify as members of the opposite sex. Now you're talking about people who don't identify as member of either sex. You're non-binary. You just say, I'm a genderless widget. And now affirmative care is necessary in which we pretend that you are right about your assessment of an objective fact about reality. The White House messaging says, quote, for transgender and non-binary children and adolescents, early gender-affirming care is crucial to overall health and well-being, as it allows the child or adolescent to focus on social transitions and can increase their confidence while navigating the healthcare system. So if you cheer a little 5-year-old who thinks that he is a she, or who is pretending that he is a she, or who is confused about he and she, if you just start calling little Billy Jane and putting him in dresses and have everybody around him mirror this, instead of, watchful waiting, seeing if he grows out of it, which the vast, 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 vast majority of people who have gender confusion at young ages do, instead of that, we have to gender affirm. By the way, Europe rejects this. Europe rejects the idea that watchful waiting is bad. In fact, the UK, Sweden, all of these places are now moving very harshly away from the idea that social affirmation and hormone blockers and transgender surgeries for minors are a good thing. But the White House is very extreme because this is what they've decided they are going to run on. I don't know what insane world they live in where they think that this is a majority proposition, but really, go for it. According to the White House messaging sheet, these procedures have been shown to increase positive outcomes for transgender and non-binary children and adolescents. No, they have not. No, they have not. The data is not in. There's no longitudinal data on this stuff. So no. The White House messaging sheet says, quote, gender-affirming care is patient-centered and treats individuals holistically, aligning their outward physical traits with their gender identity. Okay, so the White House decided that they were going to celebrate this all the way through. Not only celebrate it, by the way, but also sick the DOJ on any state that tries to protect its minors from the predations of quote-unquote healthcare specialists who wish to hormone block small children and chop the genitals off of teenagers. The Justice Department put out a statement issuing a letter to all state attorneys general reminding them of federal constitution and statutory provisions that protect transgender youth against discrimination, including when those youth seek gender-affirming care. So if you are in Arizona, for example, or if you are in a bunch of states that now say that it should be illegal for a 15-year-old who cannot consent to sex to be able to consent to having his penis removed and his testicles removed, that if you do this is a violation of federal civil rights law, according to the Biden administration. By the way, crossing the border illegally, not really a big deal, but you violated federal law if you say that it's bad for a doctor and illegal for a doctor to mutilate a child. The Assistant Attorney General, Kristen Clark, for the Justice Department Civil Rights Division says, quote, the Department of Justice is committed to ensuring that all children are able to live free from discrimination, abuse, and harassment. Now, it seems to me much more abusive to say to a 15-year-old girl, you know what? We'll chop off your breasts. We will make you surgically sterile, and we will sew a fake penis onto you. That seems more abusive than saying, you know what, you're a girl. I don't know about you. It seems to me that one of those things seems a lot more abusive than the other thing. But according to the left, true abuse is saying to a girl that she is a girl. According to the Assistant Attorney General, Kristen Clark, quote, today's letter reaffirms the state and local officials' obligation to ensure that laws and policies do not undermine or harm the health and safety of children, regardless of a child's gender identity. And they say that this violates the Equal Protection Clause. Yes, when they were writing the 14th Amendment right after the Civil War, they were definitely thinking, we need to make sure that little girls can have fake penises sewn onto them. That was exactly what they were thinking when they wrote the They weren't thinking about the rights of black people who had just recently been freed from slavery. They were thinking, what can we do about this little boy who might think he's a little girl so we can chop off his That was really what, that was 1866. That's what they were thinking, clearly. And that's what they were thinking in 1972 when they wrote Title IX of the Education Amendments, where they said that we have to treat boys and girls equally. They were thinking boys can be girls, which is clearly why they use language of male and female, because they didn't know they exist. Those geniuses, they use the language of male and female to encompass males who think they are female. Amazing, amazing. They say it also could violate Title II of the Americans with Disabilities Act. Well, I mean, that's insulting. That's transphobic. How dare you say that this has anything to do with disabilities? The letter was issued on International Transgender Day of Visibility in recognition of the contributions and accomplishments of transgender and gender non-conforming people, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, fine. So Joe Biden gets out there and starts babbling nonsensically about transgender kids. Because again, the idea here is that he is sympathetic to kids, right? That he is sympathetic to this very tiny minority of small children who suffer from an actual condition known as gender dysphoria or gender identity disorder. He's sympathetic to them. So your child must learn that boys can be girls and girls can be boys, and public school teachers should teach them, and Randy Weingarten should decide what they learn, not you. You're the parent, you're bad. Also, our society should foment and forward the ability to give small children puberty blockers, because once they hit puberty, after all, it might be really bad if little Jane grows breasts the way she was biologically designed to do. So you have to puberty block kids. By the way, puberty blockers don't work on teenagers really because they've already hit their hormonal threshold. Puberty blockers are generally used before you hit puberty because they block puberty. That is what they are called, puberty blockers. Here is Joe Biden, an 80-year-old man who is engaged in the worst sort of ideological perversion here.
The onslaught of anti-transgender state laws attacking you and your families is simply wrong. This administration is standing up for you against all these hateful bills. And we're committed to advancing transgender equality in the classroom, on the playing field, at work, in our military, in our housing and healthcare systems, everywhere, simply everywhere. Today, we're announcing even more steps, but there's always more work to do to end the epidemic of violence against transgender women of color and girls of color, to ensure transgender seniors can age with dignity, and to finally pass a bipartisan Equality Act.
By the way, the Equality Act is wildly unconstitutional and essentially makes it illegal for you to disagree with people like Joe Biden on these particular issues. The amount of propaganda in that, I love it when Joe Biden doesn't even know what he's saying, so he just repeats the last word of a sentence. It's always very inspiring. But when he suggests that states everywhere are discriminating against, that there's an epidemic of abuse against transgender people and people of color and all the rest of this, That is not what the stats demonstrate. Beyond that, the baseline notion that equality on the playing field is brought about by allowing boys to play with girls or girls to play with boys is insane. Honestly, it's amazing to me that they have decided that they are going to run on this, that this is what they're going to run on, the complete rejection of biological reality. So then the White House also ushered out the best female Jeopardy champion of all time, biological male Amy Schneider, who's a dude, because all the best women are male now. And Amy Schneider informed us that if you don't allow surgeries to take place on children that mutilate them and sterilize them, then you are endangering their lives, says a biological man who believes he is a woman and has been treated by the entire media as a woman despite the fact that he is in fact a man.
You want to comment on the bills we've seen around the nation?
They're really scary, and some of them in particular that are denying medical services to trans youth. Those are life-saving medical treatments, and they will, these bills will cause the deaths of children, and that's really sad to me and it's really frightening.
It'll cause the deaths of children if you don't give them hormone blockers and chop off their genitals and mutilate them and sterilize them for life. It will cause their deaths, you see. Amazing medical knowledge there from our very, very female Jeopardy champion. Jen Psaki lamented that in Arizona, they have now banned transgender surgeries for minors. So here is Jen Psaki from the White House. She tweeted, quote, "Today, 4 extreme and harmful bills were signed into law in Oklahoma and Arizona, 3 targeting transgender youth, 2 in Arizona, 1 in Oklahoma, 1 reproductive health care law in Arizona. These laws are unacceptable. We won't stop fighting for justice and equality." Yes, because what we need is the facilitation of provision of testosterone to young girls who are confused about gender. Now, here is the thing. There's no real screening process for this sort of stuff. And Jen Psaki and the White House know this. The number of people who are identifying as transgender has skyrocketed because it is a social contagion. This is obvious from the polling data. It is obvious from the provision of medical health care services and everywhere from the United States to the UK. But the idea is that if you stand up to these lies, then this makes you a bigot. I'm amazed that they think this is a winning message. It's amazing to me. Beto O'Rourke, who's running for the governor of Texas, and who apparently just wants to lose again so he can go back to eating dirt in New Mexico. Beto, he wore a shirt yesterday. And he wore the kind of shirt that's definitely going to win lots of votes in Texas, brah. And his shirt said, "Don't mess with trans kids," with the Texas state flag. Because that's winning argument, man. Don't mess with trans kids. It seems to me that you're messing with everyone's kids. This is not about, quote unquote, messing with trans kids. Okay, kids who have gender dysphoria should be given the greatest level of care. And medical evidence does not suggest that hormone blockers, puberty blockers, and transgender surgeries are the best level of care. That is not what the jury is very much out on that particular question, considering that the suicide attempt rates for people who have the surgeries is basically identical to people who don't have the surgeries. So that is very much in doubt. But what you guys want to do is you want to cram down on the rest of the American population your ideas about gender. That's what this is really, really about. And then if we notice it's really bad, this is the game the left loves to play. They say stuff that is just crazy, extreme insanity. And then if you notice, then it's really, really bad. I hope you enjoyed that clip from The Ben Shapiro Show. If you did, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you stay up to date with all our future content.